Hey guys, welcome back to the Gut Flow Reset program. Today's lesson is going to be all about gut permeability, or if you've heard the term leaky gut, that's kind of the more familiar term. So, this is a really important topic as part of your healing process because it's very much associated with a disruption of the microbiome, impaired gut immunity, and gut inflammation. So, let's dive deeper. The gut, as you see on the left, there's a picture, is only one cell width thick, and it's very precious, very important to keep solid and intact. And we have a mucus layer on top of that cell wall that's really protective of the gut lining. We also have many beneficial bacteria there as well when the gut is healthy and thriving. So if it's not at a healthy place, which is typically why you're here, we're going to be optimizing your gut lining as well as while we're healing root causes of your gut to really help you digest your food properly, support a healthy metabolism, get rid of any GI and non-GI symptoms, and boost that gut immunity because that's so important for your overall health. So let's just talk about what gut permeability actually is. So if we think of our gut like a drawbridge, the gut is usually naturally semi-permeable. So it's able to let small particles let's say they're called boats, of micronutrients into the bloodstream. And in an ideal gut, a healthy gut, the cells are very tightly packed together. There's no space between the cells. These are actually called tight junctions. So food is digested and absorbed there using this vehicle of the cells. So cells are tightly like smushed together, basically, nothing can get through there, and the digestion happens between the cells, through the cells, not in between them. So certain factors can break apart these cells in the intestinal wall that can leave the drawbridge slightly open, and then bigger particles, let's say food, bacteria, bacterial toxins, are then able to pass between the cells, which is not an ideal scenario. This then opens the direct flow of the intestinal lumen, which basically means anything that's in your GI tract, food, like I said before, bacteria, bacterial toxins, that lets those products into the bloodstream. Then your immune system can be activated, your body gets into a state of inflammation, and that's just really just creating this heightened state for your whole body and can majorly disrupt your metabolism. So this is typically present as a result of bacterial overgrowth, dysbiosis, maybe hidden gut infections, and we'll get into more reasons why this happens. Firstly, just wanted to show you what the image looks like. So here on the left, we have those normal tight junction cells that are very close together. There's no spaces in between. Food particles get absorbed through the cells into the bloodstream. And then we see on the right side, we have an inflamed gut. Maybe there's bacterial overgrowth going on, gut imbalance. Maybe you have low good bacteria protecting the gut lining. Then we see this spreading out of the cells and we see increase in inflammation and an increase in permeability. So food particles, bacteria, bacterial endotoxins are able to pass between the cells right into the bloodstream. So what are some other things that influence this? Besides, we said dysbiosis, SIBO, candida overgrowth as well, so fungi, any imbalance in the microbiome will impact the gut permeability. There's also a theory about modern cleanliness, so the hygiene hypothesis, which provides unintended changes to our microbiome. Basically, we're overusing, antibacterials like hand sanitizer. All those things are killing part of our microbiome every single day. So that can over time increase our imbalance of microbiome and increases our immune system to become overactive. And many have said that this influenced chronic disease over the past few decades because so much of our immune system lies in the gut and we're killing basically everything that's there, which can then increase our systemic inflammation. We also see reduced mucosal barrier function, and I'll show you a picture of what that looks like on the next slide. Antibiotics use, it attacks good bacteria. It's not just killing, let's say you have a gut infection or you have sinus infection. It's not just killing those bad bacteria, it's killing good bacteria along with it. And it's killing a lot of those good bacteria that are laying along the gut lining, protecting it. We also know that oral contraceptives like birth control, hormonal ID are disrupting the gut and creating gut permeability. That is shown in research. It creates increased inflammatory cytokines around the gut lining, which I'll show you in the next slide. We also know that low fiber intake and high processed food intake. So diet plays such an important role here. I don't want you to overlook diet in this slide because diet is pretty much one of the most important things that we can do to influence our gut permeability. We also know medications like NSAIDs, Advil, and ibuprofen can also they're irritants to the gut, and they disrupt the gut lining and increase permeability as well. So as you can see on the left here, we have symbiosis, which basically just means a happy microbiome environment where there's plenty of good guys, not too many pathogens. There are always some pathogens, but it's when they get out of control and overrun the good guys is when they start causing problems. So as you see on the left, we have a great balance of bacteria. We have a good mucosal layer. That green layer is very healthy. It's protecting the gut lining here and those villi on top of the cells, those tight junctions. So we have a happy kind of environment on the left where the gut lining is intact. Then we see in the middle when there is becoming more of a dysbiotic state where maybe you have less good guys than you used to, maybe you did some antibiotics, maybe you have SIBO, some fungal overgrowth, we tend to see lower good guys, as you can see, and then that dip in the mucosal barrier, which basically mean those pathogens are kind of eating away at the mucosal layer, and then eventually they can get very close to the cell lining. Then this can open up the cell lining, causes inflammation there, and then food particles, bacteria, and bacterial toxins can get through into your bloodstream. Over on the right-hand side now, you can become a syndrome where this is happening all the time. And then eventually, after long, long periods of time when this just goes unchecked, that can lead to autoimmune conditions and other just highly systemic inflammatory issues. And here's just another depiction of that showing more factors that will influence the gut lining. We'll get to stress. We touched on drugs, pathogens, food particles, and just that overall GI inflammation that down the line leads to autoimmunity. Usually it would show up first with food intolerances, just being sensitive to many different foods, which, as we know, we've talked about doing in your structured plan. And then we have immune system, either overreactions or the gut immune system is not working well at all. And you're getting very sick, and you're very sensitive to many different things. Other conditions associated with leaky gut would be low stomach acid. We see those paired together a lot. We see, let's say, steroid use, glucocorticoids like prednisone, high stress lifestyle. So cortisol, the stress hormone itself, actually breaks down the lining of the gut. We talked about processed foods. High intake of refined sugar will also separate that gut. We know celiac disease will also create gut permeability. Same with non-celiac gluten sensitivity. There is some evidence there. Weight gain and obesity in itself will naturally create a state of opening of the gut lining and inflammation. Hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, which is autoimmunity of the thyroid, hormone imbalances that impacts the intestinal cell healing, diverticulosis, and again, autoimmune disease. So autoimmune disease definitely goes hand in hand, can create the system of imbalance and also can be the cause and the reaction, the effect. So now we'll just go over some signs that you have a leaky gut. We've established this as part of your plan, but we just want to touch on some of these important points to demonstrate why it's important to heal the leaky gut as we're working on overall gut healing, why it's important to support that gut lining. So fatigue, brain fog, low-grade inflammation, kind of like a dull fire that never burns out in the body. And we know we can test CRP for inflammation. So we'll test that if we didn't test that already. Depression, anxiety, insulin resistance is a big one, which you can measure by your glucose level, your A1C, and your fasting insulin. We have modification of the microbiome. That really is affecting, it's a crucial role in causing weight gain and obesity and its associated metabolic complications, and difficulty losing weight is also a sign of a leaky gut because it actually affects the way that we store fat in the body and the way we metabolize our fat. skin issues like eczema, rosacea, rashes, hive, acne would make me think about the gut and the integrity of the gut lining, seasonal allergies and asthma, irregular periods, heavy PMS, and we talked about autoimmunity, but as well as diabetes, fatty liver, and fibromyalgia. So these are just some overall general signs, and we'll pinpoint what we think is appropriate for you. And what we would typically see for in the gut as well as systemically would be micronutrients, some deficiencies there. We would maybe see some food intolerances, like we had said, some bloating and reflux, just general like not feeling well in your gut. Bacterial endotoxin increase of which is called LPS, lipopolysaccharides. We will see this elevated in some stool tests, which, it's optional for you to do, but it's a great resource for us to have to get more information about what's going on in your gut. So increase in LPS is an indicator that there's leaky gut going on. That raises systemic inflammation. Sometimes we can do SIGA, which shows a heightened immune response around the gut lining, which we'll talk a little bit more about SIGA in later in the PowerPoint. And sometimes low bile output, which can impact your fat digestion. These are some signs and symptoms, but there's really no clear or evident GI symptoms at first. Sometimes there's more non-GI symptoms that lead us to suspect leaky gut. So here's another depiction of the gut lining, and I just wanted to show you the LPS that's going through. So LPS is that bacterial endotoxin we talked about, lipopolysaccharides. So at the top of the lumen, we see those squiggles. If you look on the right-hand side, the LPS is like a black swiggle. So we see that those are now getting through into the bloodstream, and that affects your metabolism, your weight loss resistance. It can halt your weight loss progress. It can create fatigue, brain fog. So this is important to really clear up this LPS just by improving our gut microbiome and improving the gut lining. Here is an image of how this happens in the skin as well. So at the gut in the center here, we have an alteration in the microbiome, which impairs the gut barrier, right? Because we know an imbalance in the microbiome will impact leaky gut. We also know that high glucose consumption, low probiotics, basically just low fiber diet, low in any beneficial bacteria, that will impact leaky gut. We know stress from the brain on the left will also impair the gut. Then we have acne here. So the skin and HPA axis is involved, which basically just means the brain and the skin and the gut are all communicating, and the impaired gut barrier will then affect acne, eruptions, and just affect the health and quality of your skin cells. So it's all connected. So just wanted to show you a little bit of a picture there. Just wanted to touch on testing because testing is a bit limited for leaky gut at this time. There has been a protein that has recently been discovered that is increased or elevated when the gut is permeable, and that is called zonulin. But we found that it's not super reliable at this time. It can fluctuate throughout the day, throughout the month. So it's not a super great indicator at this time, but it's still in the works. So usually we use improvements in your GI symptoms, in non-GI symptoms, skin health, fatigue. We also notice a decrease in weight loss resistance. So that's how we assess that your gut permeability has improved, along with eradication of your bacterial overgrowth or bacterial imbalance in your gut. And I just wanted to touch on a study of weight and leaky gut. There was 27 obese individuals who underwent this weight loss program. They measured their gut permeability via the lactmannitol test, which it's not a common test that is done, clinically, but this was done for the study. So it was elevated at baseline that indicated a more permeable gut. And by the end of the trial, they lost about 50 or so pounds, which is 23.5 kilograms, and their gut permeability was shown to decrease, and their serum IL-6, which is an inflammatory cytokine produced in the gut, that also decreased. So the results really much show that we can actually just by doing a healthy diet, a weight loss program, as well as addressing root cause issues going on, we can really reduce our gut permeability just even from sometimes weight loss alone, which is great. I love addressing all those factors, but this is even showing that just some weight loss will improve gut permeability as well. Again, I want to harp on stress here because we all just kind of write off stress, just say that we're stressed all the time. But it's really consequential because it is breaking down your gut lining the more that you're having unmanaged stress throughout your week, throughout your day, throughout your year. This can over time impair your gut health and overall health. So, managing your stress preventatively and actively is going to improve the integrity of your gut, improve symptoms like bloating, acne, anxiety, depression. We also know that L-glutamine is really important amino acid that is great for the gut lining and is holding up the gut lining much of the time, and it's depleted with stress. So cortisol breaks down the gut lining, and L-glutamine is impaired with stress. So it can break down the gut lining even more. So we know that healthy stress management, like we said, is a very important factor here. And this is an example of just showing you how cortisol breaks down the gut. We have increased cortisol leading to an increase in permeability. And then that leaky gut we know drives that pro inflammatory state. We see an increase in IL-6, which we just talked about, and TNF alpha, which is another cytokine. So then that all goes back to the brain and just basically creates this negative cycle where it's raising cortisol and cortisol is breaking down the gut even more, and that inflammation cycle just continues. So let's talk some more tips for stress relief because we know this is so important for our gut, our overall health, our immune system, how we digest our food. So first tip is 4 deep breaths before a meal. Just taking some really deep breaths in and out for a few minutes. That can help stimulate your rest and digest mode. It'll turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. It improves your digestion. So when we said, like we said, when your body is in a state of stress, your blood flow is actually not prioritized to your gut. It's basically, it thinks that you're fighting a lion or a tiger. So why do we need to digest our food right now? If your blood is pumping to your muscles, your heart, because you're in a state of stress. So we want to turn off that active fight or flight mode and turn on that rest and digest mode. So turning off all electronics helps with this, TV, phone before a meal, because if we're still in a state of stress, we're talking to people, we're watching a scary show or a high drama show, our gut is really not going to be digesting our food as well. So chewing food really slowly, basically to like about an applesauce consistency, really starts the digestive process in the mouth. We know that starch, like all of our carbohydrates, are begin to digest in the mouth from amylase. So daily stress practices like gratitude journaling are really great. Meditation, belly breathing, and yoga. So if we have not already, we will set some goals for you in the next few weeks to really work on your stress management. So now we'll be talking about some solutions and your path forward to healing a leaky gut. And these will obviously be tailored to you, but we're going to talk about the main interventions for healing a leaky gut, along with your individualized plan for improving your gut flora. So we know high fiber is an amazing intervention for leaky gut. We wanted to promote the beneficial bacteria that protect the gut lining. They then produce beneficial compounds like short chain fatty acids and mucus, which we know that mucosal lining is really important for protecting the integrity of the gut. We know diet diversity is really important, which you know, if you're in my program, you know that diet diversity is very important. So that expands our microbiome diversity and improves our gut flora and its resiliency. So the goal to reach in the end of your program would to be eating at least 40 to 50 different plants food per week. And that's okay if you're not there now, but that is our goal, to increase your diet diversity, to improve your microbiome strength and resiliency, to improve that gut lining. We also know that reducing processed foods, reducing preservatives, additives, food colorings, and food dyes is really important because those have been shown in research to break down that gut lining. And we know that L-glutamine is a nice intervention as well. We want to protect it by reducing our stress, right? But we can also supplement with L-glutamine. So we'll talk about if this is right for you. Quercetin, which is a compound found in many fruits and vegetables here. That actually is an awesome compound because it reduces the space between those intestinal cells, those tight junctions. So it can actually pull the cells back together, which is like so magical and great. So you may be on a low FODMAP elimination, so disregard some of these if they're not on your plan right now. But apples, honey, raspberries, onions have the highest in quercetin, red grapes, cherries, oranges, some citruses, grapefruit, leafy greens, and again, adjust for low FODMAP as needed. But the goal is to then get you to be tolerating all these foods because we want this variety for increased quercetin to improve the gut lining. We also may use some digestive enzymes to help break down large food particles. I like to use these, especially in the beginning if needed, and then as necessary going forward, based on if you're going out to a restaurant, you're having a larger meal, just if you need a little extra digestive support. We also can benefit from high grade food quality food powders, high in polyphenols like Organifi. That's like one of my favorite brands of greens and reds powders. Very high quality, no glyphosate, which is the weed Roundup killer. Um, we also want to promote more short chain fatty acids, which we know from a high fiber diet that's very varied. We know that we increase our short chain fatty acid production there, which improves the leakiness of the gut. And here are a bunch of polyphenols that are found in so many great plant foods. I won't list them all here, but we have ECGC, anthocyanidins, genistein, and naringenin. So some kind of tongue twisters, but these are amazing, found in lots of fruits and vegetables that are feeding your good gut bacteria, and they're helping to improve the gut lining. That's why, again, it's very important to get a diverse range of foods throughout the week. And these are some of my favorite evidence-based herbs to use for healing a leaky gut. So slippery elm, DGL, aloe vera, marshmallow root. These all increase our good bacteria like bifidobacterium, lactobacillus, bacteroids. They act as prebiotics by feeding our good gut bacteria. They've also been shown to reduce some pathogenic species like Citrobacter frundi and Klebsiella pneumoniae. They've also shown to increase butyrate and propionate, which are those short chain fatty acids that are amazing for your gut health and gut integrity. So I love these as part of your plan. We'll talk about these if we think these are right for you. And when they're well tolerated, probiotics from food sources are great, like yogurt, kombucha, miso, tempeh, ACV, which is pretty well tolerated from the beginning, kefir, and pickled vegetables. We also know prebiotic foods and supplements help feed our good gut bacteria as well. So we will determine which prebiotic is right for you if you're not on one already. I love a good prebiotic powder that's assistive to your diet. We also have food sources like onions, garlic, asparagus, bananas, and artichokes. So, based on your tolerance, we'll start adding some of these foods back to your diet. We also know that collagen is great. It contains amino acids that help repair the gut lining. So, I love using that as a protein source in the morning, maybe in a smoothie, oatmeal, coffee, because it dissolves really easily in hot drinks. We also have a leaky gut autoimmune tea, which is on my Amazon page, but it's basically a blend of those herbs from the previous slide in a tea form, which I love. There's also colostrum, there's also IgG and IgA support. So there's plenty of different options and just tools that we can use for healing a leaky gut. These are some of the probiotic food sources I mentioned on the last slide. We have sauerkraut, pickled veggies, kimchi. I happen to love kimchi. It's kind of spicy, but I definitely recommend you trying it if you're able to tolerate fermented foods at this time. We also know prebiotics are foods or functional supplements that feed your good gut bacteria and allow them to thrive and replicate. So if you're not sure about those, I just wanted to touch base on that. We also have IgG and IgA support, which can be used in supplement form. We know that IgG is an abundant antibody produced in the body and in the gut. And it's thought that some people just don't make enough of them, IgG or IgA, and that can lead to low gut immunity, like not the best immune system, which can mean more gut pathogens and infections and increase in gut permeability and more allergies. Um, so we know that IgG and IgA can improve our mucosal immunity, stimulate those gut repair mechanisms, make them work a little bit more, a little bit better, help maintain our microbial balance. And research has shown that they can neutralize pathogens in the GI tract. Ooh, sorry, that influence dysbiosis and our disease processes. And these are some key nutrients that help repair the gut lining and can be depleted if you have leaky gut. So there are definitely some great ones to incorporate into your plan. And we'll talk about these specifically for you again. So digestive enzymes, like we said before, magnesium. I tend to love magnesium glycinate. You may tend towards more magnesium citrate if you're having more constipation. So again, that's very individualized. Zinc, I love a good multivitamin that contains zinc, as well as some zinc sources from food like oysters, pumpkin seeds. We know B12 is important for energy, vitamin D, vitamin A. Those are both fat soluble. Then we have turmeric and curcumin. You know, I love a good turmeric latte. You have a document called 7 Ways to Incorporate More Turmeric in Your Diet. So definitely recommend checking that out if you have not already. And then I love a good quality bone broth. They contain minerals, collagen, L-glutamine, and proline, which are great for that gut lining and reducing inflammation. And just wanted to touch on secretory IgA. It's a measure of gut immunity, and it's something that can be measured on a stool test, or it actually can also be measured at a GI doctor, just depends on which one. So something I have on your recommended lab work, so you can see if your doctor will test this for you. But it's the most abundant class of antibody found in the intestines and most other mammals. It's the first line of defense in protecting our gut lining against pathogens. So when it's at a good level, we don't want it to be too high or too low. We kind of want it to be just right. When it's at the good level, it can interfere with the earliest steps of an infection process. Let's say food poisoning, bad bacteria taking holds in your gut. It can block toxins from adhering to the intestinal epithelium, which is awesome. It promotes clearing of many pathogens. It entraps them in that good mucus that we have and encourages excretion. So, secretory IgA is very important. And it's that possible link that we see between kind of like gut imbalances and systemic illness. So, that's why I love to know this if we can, but it's not always possible. But just in case you are able to get it, the secretory IgA, we'll talk about the deficiency as well. So, we know that those deficient in SIGI are more susceptible to pathogens. It's more associated, a low SIGA with asthma, autoimmunity, getting E. coli, or having candida overgrowth. Um, and we know lifestyle nutrition factors will also have an influence, and it's definitely mediated by cortisol and stress. Once again, we know that elevated stress will reduce our secretory IgA. So that's why, again, just harping on that stress piece, it's so important to have a plan in place for preventative stress reduction because it affects so many things about our health. It'll break down your gut lining. It will reduce your SIGA, which basically means you're more susceptible to getting gut infections and just becoming ill or getting sick from any colds, any flu. You will get more sick from those types of things if you have high stress levels. It's not as common for SIGA to be elevated, but it does happen sometimes. Like we were saying before, it's kind of like that Goldilocks immunoglobulin. We want it to be not too high, not too low, just right. But it can be high when the immune system is on high alert, when we have an elevated immune response going on with maybe something like Epstein-Barr, HIV, or like a chronic parasite or gut pathogen that's just kind of like laying under the radar, and your immune system is constantly being stimulated. These are some ways through the diet that we can support those healthy secretory IgA levels and support your gut immunity. So that's why I love eggs. I love eggs for many reasons, but eggs provide choline that is really great for your gut immunity. We have fatty acids as well. So EPA, DHA from fatty fish like wild salmon, or ALA from hemp, chia, and flax seeds that then is converted to EPA and DHA in the body. So those plant-based sources of essential fatty acids are awesome too. They're also, as we know, great sources of fiber to feeding the good gut bacteria. We also have glutathione, which is great. You would take that in a supplement form. Same with NAC. NAC is a precursor to glutathione, but they are really supportive to the liver. They're also great for SIGA, phosphatidylcholine, vitamin C from food sources. I typically like to see food sources of vitamin C over synthetic, just because they're better used by the body and they're better well absorbed. We know zinc is great for increasing SIGA, better stress management by improving your cortisol, again, harping on that, and colostrum, which I definitely would say grass-fed, that also increases your SIGA through providing those immunoglobulins, IgA and IgG. So I've had really good success with all of these interventions we discussed. Sometimes symptoms can be stubborn, and you may benefit from a short-term elimination diet of certain foods that are known to irritate the intestinal lining. So I've listed them here. And you definitely want to well, we would do it together, like an elimination plan and then a reintroduction plan of at least the first 6 in the bullet points here. So we'll chat about that if that's something you need. But that is the conclusion of the gut permeability PowerPoint. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll chat if you have any questions. Talk to you soon.